called the Upper Puntalva Building because it's upriver from Jackson Square. And it was completed in 1848 by Michael Almanach de Puntalva for a cost of $150,000. Its twin across the square is called the Lower Puntalva Building because it's downriver from Jackson Square. It was completed in about 1856 and it cost $130,000. There were 16 residences on each side of the square, and there were businesses down below. The church at the back of the square is the St. Louis Cathedral. That is the third church on that site. This church was completely rebuilt in the 1850 period, but does incorporate portions of the 1794 church. The building to the left of the cathedral is the Cabildo, or the Spanish seat of government. It's a museum property today, and it's under renovation. The nationally significant thing that took place there in 1803 is where the Louisiana transfer took place, and giving us all a part of 15 states. The building to the right of the cathedral is the presbytere, which would lead you to believe it was used as a priest house. It never was. It's a Louisiana State Museum property, and it has such things as Napoleon's death mask. The monument in the center of the square, that of Andrew Jackson. He was the hero of the Battle of New Orleans that was fought January 8, 1850. That's the first equestrian monument in the United States. There are two more exactly like it. One is located at Hermitage, Tennessee, which is Jackson's home, and the other one's at Washington, D.C. The fence around the square is original to it, as are four statues, one in each corner. And of course, originally this was the old military parade ground and was not transformed until the 18th of the original Indian trading post. And we're going to tell you that you need to stop by there and get a donut without a hole and some cafe au lait. And we're going to talk a little bit more about our coffee in just a little while. Looks like it's such a beautiful day. I don't know what you all did to deserve this. But we're delighted. Okay, now this is your Lower Puntalva Building, and right down in through here is your Louisiana Tourist Information Center and the 1850 house. Now, coming up by the left-hand side of the bus, you'll see a big sign. It says Two Jacks, 1856. The lady who started that restaurant started by cooking for the men that worked over here in the French market. Now, we call this the French market. It was roofed by the Spaniards, operated by the Italians, who sold the vegetables the Germans grew, but we call it the French market. This is about the second oldest Creole restaurant in the city. And in just a little bit, you can see some of our carnival costumes right in this window here out of the left-hand side of the bus. That was for one of the crews, 1985 from across the river. Carnival season started officially on last Saturday night, the 12th night after Christmas, on the Feast of the Epiphany. And we'll be having carnival balls right up to Mardi Gras night, which of course is a movable feast. And we'll talk a little bit more about carnival as we go along too. Just a little bit, you're going to be able to see a red and white awning. You might not be able to see the sign today, but it says Central Grocery. That's the home of a famous Italian sandwich called a muffalata. They put all the Italian meats and cheeses in a big wop salad on it. Comes on a big bun. You can get a half for a quarter. And it's a good, inexpensive lunch, but if you don't do anything, just take a little time and roam through Central Grocery. The natives all love that place. Now, coming up out of the left-hand side of the bus, you'll see the Mediterranean Cafe. Usually always a good jazz saxophonist there. So if you want to sit out here and soak up a little good music, you usually can. And then on the right-hand side, you can see Greco's Fish Market Restaurant. That was the last site of a fish market. That's how the restaurant got its name, right there on that site. Now stay over on your left because it's... No, they haven't set up yet. They're getting ready to. This is a gazebo. This is another place they will start playing music and you can sit out and soak up the sun and it's usually a good jazz band. Now, stay looking out of the left-hand side of the bus because you're going to see more garlic than you've seen in your life. And hanging right in the middle of the garlic are some red peppers. We put bell pepper, onion, and garlic and everything but the coffee pot. And to that we add chicory. That's why you don't like that. And chicory started being added during the Civil War here in New Orleans. We let them occupy us early in April of 1862, and they blockaded the port. And we were big coffee drinkers, and we just started adding chicory to the coffee to stretch it, and ultimately got addicted to that too. This is what's left of the open-air vegetable market and the flea market that we have, and of course on Sunday the flea market is said to be at its absolute best. My kids say the best prices in town. Now, You can just begin to see over out of the left-hand side of the bus a streetcar. That's the streetcar that Tennessee Williams made so famous. The streetcar named Desire. We've donated it back to the Regional Transit Authority, and we hope to have it in service on the riverfront sometime next year. The building directly in front of the streetcar, the big red one, is the old United States Mint. It's a Louisiana State Museum property. And if you have any interest in jazz at all, the Mint has the New Orleans Jazz Club's collection on jazz. It has Louis Armstrong's cornet, Pete Fountain's clarinet, and Lord Jelly Roll Martin stuff. It's a very good exhibit. So you might want to come down here. It's open from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. daily. It will be closed on Monday, however. Also has a fine Mardi Gras exhibit and some of the coins that were once minted there when it was an active mint. We've just turned on to Esplanade Avenue. The area of ground between the two streets has a name. It's called Promenade Publique. And it's called that because it's where the Creoles got all dressed up on Sunday and promenaded to show off their family. The area out of the right-hand side of the bus is called Faubourg Marigny, Florida. Faubourg means nothing more than subdivision, but doesn't it sound more impressive to live in a faubourg? They changed my neighborhood to Faubourg St. Elmo. How about that? Hot iron gates on it, and they come out. You call it the sidewalk, we call it the bank in New Orleans. This house belonged to Count Arnaud, the founder of Arnaud's Restaurant. His daughter, Jermaine Wells, died about 5 years ago, just in the latter part of last year. This house sold for $285,000 and will undergo $1 million worth of renovation. Now stay looking out of the left-hand side of the bus because at the very next corner, you're going to see a terracotta colored house with 4 basic green openings. This is a Creole Cottage. These were the basic buildings that they built. These are the oldest buildings. It has 4 rooms in it. It would have had a detached kitchen and garçonniere. Oh goody, we got the light. You can see how simple these are, okay? That's what we built just to get a roof over our head. Now in 1850, when we had all the money, go right across the street and see the big house. That's the Ghost House. That's what we built after we got lots of money here. As we cross Royal Street, you can kind of look down, and the detached kitchen and the garçonniere are still in place in that house. Take a good look at the ironwork that is cast. It was cast in Germany and imported here. It's got little cupids in it, and we think it's significant that the Goshes had 15 children. Mrs. Stream owns that house. She owns Evergreen Plantation, a house in California, and she also is the keeper of several Fabergé eggs. Okay, in just a little bit, you're going to see a sign that's going to say Circle K out of the right-hand side of the bus. And as we get to it, you'll be able to see a plantation home here on Esplanade Avenue that belonged to the first American governor of Louisiana, William C.C. Claiborne. It's right here. And stay over there because I'm going to need people who've been on this house. It is absolutely gorgeous. And the palms look like they made it through the freeze. And as we pass, look back, you can see the swimming pool right here. And look at those Corinthian columns. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're named at Melrose, which is the name of one of our plants. Now we're headed to Rampart Street. Rampart Street gets its name because it was the ramparts of the old city. The French Quarter is approximately a square mile. It runs from Iberville Street to Esplanade, from the river to the rampart, or Rampart Street. As we cross Rampart Street, we'll be leaving the Vieux Carré, the old square. You won't be able to see it, but our oldest church is located on Rampart Street. If you ask the natives what the name of that church is, they'd reply by saying St. Jude. It is because it is an international shrine to St. Jude. But originally when it was built, it was named the Mortuary Chapel. It was built on the outskirts of the old city for burial purposes only. We had someone's yellow fever, cholera, and plague here in New Orleans. And they didn't know what was causing it. They were afraid to bury out of the cathedral because they thought it was contagious. So they built this church without any pews or anything so that they could disinfect it and that sort of thing. Directly behind the Mortuary Chapel is St. Louis number 1 Cemetery, which is the oldest of our above-ground cities of the dead. They would bring the bodies into church, do the burial rite, right out the back door into the cemetery. In 1853, we buried 11,000 people out of that mortuary chapel. Life expectancy in New Orleans was slim to nil. We're on our way to St. Louis number 3 Cemetery, where I will take you off of the bus, give you a narration, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them for you at that time. Well, here we are at Claiborne Avenue, and of course that was named for our first American governor, William C.C. Claiborne. And this is the interstate system. This is North Claiborne. We're going to meet Claiborne Avenue one more time as we go along today on tour. Coming up on the right-hand side of the bus is born to them here in the territory of the colony was the Creole. 1800s, they kind of think it was a mixture of Spanish and French. The people in New Orleans did not care for a mixture of anything. If you meet a Creole here in New Orleans today, shake their hand, tell them you're proud to meet them. Don't argue. It's like the Bible in politics. There'll never be a winner. Right here on the right-hand side of the bus, that's a single raised Louisiana cottage put on top. And right next door here is a double raised Louisiana cottage. And look at the pretty beveled glass that you can see in the doors. Okay, now we'll get back to court. They flew the flag when the Ayatollah died. They kept it up for the 4th of July, and now they just like the flag. I had to check that out. I couldn't resist it. Everybody wanted to know why the flag was there. So I found somebody who knew the owner. On the left-hand side, you see a school. It says John Mcdonough. John Mcdonough came here from Baltimore, Maryland. He bought a plantation directly across the river from Jackson Square. He didn't believe in slavery, but he found out plantations didn't work without slaves. He acquired some slaves, but he is the planter from Louisiana that's attributed with having started the very first school for slaves on his plantation. John Mcdonough, it said, was too frugal to pay the ferry fare, so we have a lot of, at the Hilton, we have a big mural that shows him being rowed across the street by his slaves, across the river, by his slaves, because he wouldn't pay the ferry fare. Needless to say, John never married. When he died in 1850, he willed all of his money to the schools in New Orleans and Baltimore. We built 38 public schools. We operate 22 today. Baltimore has one school named for John Mcdonough. It's very private, very exclusive, but does have fine academic standards. Over here on the right-hand side of the bus, look at the bevel. You ought to see the Christmas lights in the bevel glass, the Christmas tree. Now, John Mcdonough School again. And look at the second house in the corner in here. Start at the top, at the glass work in the attic, and come on down. This is a Queen Anne style house and a courtyard house. The home of the Harry Krishnas. Everybody know who they are? They'll be playing down on Jackson Square with this weather being good. Look at the White House with the blue glass in it. We did a lot of that around here too. We're also famous for neighborhood bars and restaurants and neighborhood grocery stores here in New Orleans. You can get some of the best food in a neighborhood bar and restaurant that you'll ever get at the best prices. Unfortunately, people look at them from the exterior and turn their nose up. Well, right here at the end of this pocket park, out of the left-hand side of the bus, is a little green building, and that is one of those neighborhood grocery stores. Third generation of Italians. They're still making the homemade hot sausage and Italian sausage that you're buying on po' boy sandwiches down in the French Quarter. Continuing out of the left-hand side of the bus, the pink building trimmed in light green is a slave cabin. It was brought here from the Old Boat Plantation, which is now City Park, and we'll be going there shortly. It has 4 basic rooms. It has a loggia across the back with 2 cabinets or storage areas, and a steep set of steps going upstairs into that roof area. The lady who turned it into a single-family home has a one-person elevator in that second room on the left-hand side. And, of course, originally the roof was pitched like that on account of snow. And up until about 2 weeks ago, we thought that was kind of silly. The yellow house with the black shutters is a single shotgun house. One room is directly behind the other. All the doors line up. And if you open all the doors, stand on the porch and fire a gun. The bullet goes straight through without ever having touched anything. Next up, Our Lady of the Most Holy Rosary Church, built in 1929. The rectory to the church is a beautiful plantation home that overlooks Bayou St. John. Next up, Cabrini High School, named for Mother Cabrini, educates young women 9th through 12th grade, average tuition $3,000 a year. Next up is the raised Louisiana East Lake Bracket double shotgun house. That's a mouthful, isn't it? And then out of the right-hand side of the bus,
works quite simply this way. Behind that door, about midway, is a shelf. There's a double thickness brick above the shelf and below the shelf.
This is known as St. Louis number 3.
Yes, we bury in coffins. Yes, we just like bombing only lasts about 45 days. They shouldn't be doing it. So the process is now for cremation.
This is St. Louis number 3. It's on the route. Everything's above ground here. We'll refer to the tape. I'm just going to pan the area because I can get the narration off of the tape.
You might do a little more business here. Not bad for them, but anyway, James Gallion Sr. Played a very important part in New Orleans. He gave us some of the finest Greek revival architecture that we enjoyed here in the city. Very talented architect. His son James Jr. You'll hear James Gallion today. They'll follow his footsteps. You can tell from the monument that Sr. died at sea, and about that time this cemetery was developing, and his son James Gallion Jr. thought that there should be a significant monument to his father here in New Orleans. So he erected this monument. So this is nothing more than a monument to an Irishman who came here and experienced it and has gone out of that program. He used to use it to express the day the background area is not unique to Mall.
And you want to remember when you look at these, it's January the 14th. And this is a park in New Orleans. And there's an oak tree that actually grows on the ground. And I think they call it John Philip Susan or something. I'm just going to pan the area. One of the trees in this park. It's a city park of New Orleans, and the palm trees are not native to it, and they had a freeze about 3 days of 10 degrees down here, which is unheard of in the last 100 years, and it just about wiped them out. This is moss hanging on these trees. They say it's an air purifier. I really don't know. It's a beautiful park.
And as we make this, rich folks keep their boats over in this area out of the right-hand side of the bus at the Southern Yacht Club Harbor. Oh, goody, you're going to be able to see it. Out of the left-hand side of the bus, you're going to get to see the world's longest bridge. It costs $1 to go each way, and it goes into a bed and breakfast community called Mandeville and Covington. Now, the day that it snowed and iced, this was a fun trip. Well, see, what happened is everybody went to work. This all didn't break loose till between 9 and 10 in the morning. So everybody was already in the city, so they had to do convoys back and forth across. The other thing, I've experienced fog on it, and that's a horrifying experience, and high winds will get you. But it is the world's longest bridge, and a lot of people do commute every day from across the lake. Let's see what we got out today. I see one sailboat. This is considered a shallow body of water. There's a pretty one just going out. This is considered a shallow body of water. It's 8 feet depth for the most part. It does go down to 32 feet in places. And it's a brackish lake, which means it's both fresh and salt water. Across the bridge, probably 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how fast you're going. 4 miles in width. And remember, we did fill in all that portion that we were traveling on back there. yacht I've ever seen out in this area was about probably 90 feet long. It had two 16-foot power boats on deck, 2 motorcycles, and 2 of those water skis. It belonged to Evel Knievel. And there was a beautiful Austrian crystal chandelier in the dining room. It's just fabulous. We were out here to eat one night. There was food over here. But these are the kind of restaurants that we used to eat. They still was built out here in 1929 to be in the country. And the Archbishop's Parish Church is St. Louis Cathedral, and he does say Mass at 10 a.m. You can ride the St. Charles streetcar for 60 cents exact change. By the way, you can get a 2-day pass and a 3-day pass, and it's so inexpensive. So if you're going to be around for a little while, you might want to do that. The Gray Line desk right Jack's Brewery has those passes that they sell. But anyway, it's not running this far right now because we're doing a renovation and a restoration on the cross ties under the tracks. You'll see it in a little bit. We couldn't cut cypress. We have a moratorium on cypress. They have to be 60 years old to be cut. And of course, we almost depleted all of the cypress and didn't replant it. Streetcars. Okay, the church right in front of the bus, one side of them. They got their bank on the other side. This is the old New Orleans Whitney Bank. Across the street, they have their drugstore. And they have their favorite mode of transportation right out front. And then this little area is called Oak Street. It's one of the few shopping districts that survived after the major shopping malls came in. We're going to play that game a little bit so you get the feel of it. Now, coming up out of the right-hand side of the bus is a pink house trimmed in white. Stay over there and look at the pink house right above the front door, the round window on the 2nd story. Remember, we raised these houses in the early days because we were concerned with flooding. And in just a little bit, to the right-hand side of the bus, you're going to pass some modern apartment buildings, and you can begin to see a brick house that's painted terracotta in color. This is the home of the Dominican nuns. They're Irish nuns. The white buildings that you can see in the distance over there, beyond the terracotta house, belonged to them until about 5 years ago when they sold it to Loyola University, and you're now looking at Loyola's law school. The Windy House. Some people from England taught me that. I called it an English tutor. He said, "You want me to tell you something cute?" He said, "That's the Windsor House and that's the Windy House." But anyway, the little girl that was built for him, Samuel Zamurray, he was the founder of United Fruit Company. It has a main entrance on St. Charles Avenue and a main entrance on Audubon Place. Audubon Place, Millionaires Row. There are 28 homes that face that privately owned street. You must see the guard there to gain admittance at all times. The ground was once owned by Tulane University, and when Sam Zamurray died, he willed his house to the president of Tulane. Next up, Tulane University. The building in the center was built out here at the turn of the century to be in the country. It's Richtonian Romanesque in architecture, and of course, it's named for the first benefactor to a medical school in the area. Please swing over here and look at the front entrance to Audubon Park. The third finest zoo in the country does have the longest main aisle of any church in the city, 124 feet. Next up, Loyola University of the South, named for Ignatius Loyola, St. Ignatius Loyola, operated by the Society of Jesus of the Jesuits. 5,000 students at Tulane, average tuition 17,000. 3,500 students at Loyola, average tuition 12,000. This building on the corner is the new commuter house. Look at the beautiful stained glass. This house originally, it's called a wedding cake house. We jokingly named it that. It originally was built for $13,900. It's for sale for $1,400,000. Come on over to the other side and see our beautiful raised Louis. That's the Shane home. They were some of the German immigrants who made beer and were on the board of directors down at Jackson Square, Jackson Brewery, and also they owned Catholic funeral homes here in New Orleans. As we get to the very next light, we'll be at Jefferson Avenue. Look at the glass work in these houses. It's just unreal. The ladies' clubs, they still wear hats and gloves and have tea in the afternoon. Over here on the right, the English Tudor house belongs to Mike. This was the site of Rugby Academy. When they tore down Rugby Academy, this house was behind it. They rolled it forward to get a St. Charles Avenue address. That's a lot of house to roll forward. Stay over there. As soon as we pass the apartment, the next house, look at the granite steps. That's Richtonian Romanesque in architecture. Was built in 1912 to be the largest house on the avenue. It had 25,000 square feet of living area. Continuing on your left, next up will be Sacred Heart Academy, operated by the Sisters of Sacred Heart for 101 or 2 years. Educate young women, kindergarten through high school, average tuition $5,000. Now the Ursuline nuns came here in 1727. They became our first nurses. They opened the first school for Indian girls, the first school for black girls, and the first school for white girls. They are still here in New Orleans today educating young women. I was just up there for the Feast of the Battle of New Orleans. They have a big celebration. Our Lady of Prom Sucker is our patron saint. And past that modern apartment building, a brand new plantation home completed just last year. Plantation style. We got a moratorium on these apartment buildings now, so we won't be losing any more of our beautiful architecture. Continue on your left. In just a minute, you'll be able to see some flags flying. That is the Old Columns Hotel. High demand by movie companies. That's where movies like Pretty Baby were made with Brooke Shields. As soon as you pass that, you can look over out at the right and see some of the streets. Was the German ambassador's home. When he had to leave town in a hurry, they burned all the embassy records in the side yard. Everything over on the right-hand side of the bus is the Guard District. The other side is quite simply uptown. Now we're getting ready to pass Washington Avenue, which is kind of the main street of the Guard District. Down about a block, you can see Lafayette Cemetery No. 1, which is a city cemetery where our German immigrants are buried. And the Guard District was the plantation, and oh, by the way, Commander's Palace is across the street from the cemetery if you're looking for this. But this was originally the Liverday plantation, and ladies, you're going to love it, Miss Liverday got it in the divorce. Right here, the White House, Belfort, is an old plantation-style home. She sold it for $500,000 and went back to Paris and led a pretty gay life. The oldest home of record is Toby's Corner on Britannia and First. It is a plantation, and it was built in 1838. It's good. It's a whole view. And you can flip over and see the Art Deco Burger King. We got to give them equal time. As we get to this light, on the right-hand side of the bus, you'll be able to see the beautiful Victorian mansion, which is used a little bit better in a minute. Now, I showed you that KB drugstore up on Broadway in St. Charles. This building company, and Mr. Bestoff, you can see the modern art right here that's on the, it is 27 stories tall and 17 acres in size, and I had the awesome privilege of standing out in the middle of that football field and looking up. Now, there wasn't any people there. I left. That is an shopping mall. It's called New Orleans Center. It has a beautiful atrium in it, and it has a large, there was an observation deck in there. Opened about, well, right before the Republican National Convention. Okay, now I'm going to show 30 years old. Now we're turning on to Poydras Street. Poydras Street is our street of the 21st century. If you'd like to see our first skyscraper, you can go to the corner of St. Peter and Royal. And you can recognize it. It has a plaque on it that says skyscraper. It was 3 stories tall. And the rents in these tall buildings are about $24 to $26 a square foot. And as we pass the LL&E, $59 special in the summertime.
Okay, this is New Orleans from a riverboat that we're going to take a couple-hour trip on. About that. I'll just do a 180 here real quick. Sun's in the wrong place. I'll go the other way. That's the old Jackson Brewery. I don't know, it's not used for a brewery anymore. Let's see what we can get here. Make a pass at the downtown area again. It's the Monteleone Hotel. We're just taking a picture of a couple of boats going by.
So that's the kingdom.
We're in the harbor of New Orleans. This is actually an anchorage for ocean-going vessels.
Gulf of Mexico. At this point, we're located 110 miles upstream from the Gulf of Mexico by way of the river and 65 miles by air. We're swinging Algiers Point, Quarter Fleet, which is alongside our docks. We have over 26 miles of water to dock space in the port. Our wharves are named after city streets, and it's one of the best spots on the river to take a picture of the skyline.
To the ladies.
Taking cargo from the barge and put it aboard the ship can put the entire barge aboard. It's called a lash carrier. Now leaving the city of New Orleans, entering the town of Araby, Louisiana, parish of St. Bernard. State of Louisiana, where the hero in the Battle of New Orleans. Building in the center of the compound was the Commandant's quarters. Building to the right was the commissary. The building to the left was the supply depot. These homes are still being used today. They are housing the Louisiana National Guards, called Jackson Barracks, which can only be viewed from the river here on our left. Away from the levee, it's one of the largest plantations on south of New Orleans. It's called the Old Boat Plantation on our left. This hall was built in the mid-1840s out of soft Louisiana clay, then covered with cypress siding to protect it from seasonal storms. The entire third floor of this hall is a formal ballroom lit by the dormers and the roof. A octagonal structure on top of the hall is called the cupola. This is the Old Boat Plantation on our left, in the process of being renovated. Second largest sugar refiner in the world. The first one was in Brazil. This one was built in 1901. Here they produced 6,700,000 pounds of sugar per day. Produce sugar from the small package that you see on your dining room tables to 500-pound bags. It is the home of Domino Sugar. Louisiana. The Chalmette slip is the only man-made slip here in the port. And slips are used for boats to tie up into to avoid strong winds and currents out on the river. There is a ship inside the Chalmette slip, a general cargo freighter flying the flag of Cyprus. This is where the Battle of New Orleans took place back on the 8th day of January, 1815, between General Andrew Jackson, who teamed up with the equally famous pirate Jean Lafitte. They defeated Sir Packingham in the British Army here on our left 175 years ago. You notice a large white marble obelisk rising from behind the trees. It's called the Chalmette Monument. This monument was placed there to commemorate the famous battle fought on these grounds. You can also see a plantation home called the Beauregard Plantation, which was a summer home. Well, it's recently been renovated. It's open to the public. About a 7-mile drive from the French quarters. This is the Chalmette battlefield to our left. And moving on our left is the Creole Queen. She is paddle-wheel propelled, but not by steam. She has a diesel electric engine. She does 2-hour cruises with about a 15-minute layover at the Chalmette battlefield. natural gas comes from. Over 40% of the United States natural gas comes from the state of Louisiana. This is a mobile refinery on the left. The flag of Monrovia, Liberia. If you look at the Liberian flag at the stern of the ship, you notice that it looks a lot like the American flag. It has the red and white stripes in the blue field, but in the center of the blue field, there's only one star. Monrovia is the capital city of Liberia. Liberia is a small country on the west coast of Africa. But to put your vehicle aboard, it will cost you $1. It's 1 to 3 for the road crossing we have in the port of New Orleans. It is the Intracoastal Waterway System going west. A route to the Algiers Canal. The waterway on our left can take you 690 miles to Brownsville, Texas, and the Mexican border. It's the Intracoastal Waterway System going west on our left.
We'll try to take these, keep out of the glare.
Troops outward. This is what is called the Davis Bow. This Davis Bow is designed by a 12-year-old kid in our class. The kid is now a millionaire. It was put into effect some 50 years ago. It's found that this decreases the wave wash of the ship, it increases the speed of the vessel, and it saves 1/3 on the cost of fuel. On modern ships traveling around the world, they have a Davis Bow.
Cyprus, laying at anchor in the free anchorage.
I see on our left. It's called Alvarado Shears. At Avondale, due to very minor repairs to U.S. Navy ships. Avondale will have a much larger shipyard located upriver ahead of us, some 12 miles, but it built and repaired large ships. They have a Navy contract, and there are minor repairs here, and the major repairs are done upriver.
Find lodging for tonight too.
Canal Street is one of the widest streets in the world. We're passing the Spanish Plaza. That's the fountain you see on our right, donated to us by Governor of Spain. The building at the foot of Canal Street is called the World Trade Center. On top of that building is a revolving cocktail lounge called the Top of the Mart. station at this time.
Be in a wrong place. don't care, just to get a lead in here.
Johnson was a black who was freed from slavery back in the 1820s. He went into the barbering business here in Natchez. And over the years, he acquired a string of barbershops from Natchez to New Orleans. And he became quite wealthy. As a matter of fact, a book was written about Johnson. It's called At a Home Down in New Orleans, and it's located on Canal Street, and they now call it the Boston Club. It's the club where the King of Mcdonough, King Rex, toasts his queen each year. Our courthouse here on your left was also built in 1820. Now, the new addition on the back was done around 1956. They didn't do too good a job of making it match up, but it's there, so we'll just have to live with it. Now, the only bed and breakfast in town that I don't recommend to any of my riders is over here on our right. You can pretty well see why. That's our county jail. And it was built in 1975 to replace the old jail, which is the old Victorian structure. Now, the county had wanted to tear that old jail down when they built the new one 14 years ago. The Historical Society carried them to court over that. And the courts ruled that they had to leave it standing, but they hadn't had the money to do any restoration work on it, so it's just been here. And now that Natchez has it. Now, this building was completed in 1828. The Presbyterians believed that their slaves should also attend church, so they built what they call the slave gallery to go into the balcony. Over the years, though, they've closed off that entrance and have the entrance through the main doors. Now, right next to it, we were talking about the First Federal Building. That's the savings and loan structure. Now, it's not an old building. They built it in 1974, but they did a real good job on the architectural design of it. He was a little three-legged yellow and white tomcat that wandered up into the courthouse one afternoon back in 1978. And one of the ladies that worked here hadn't quite finished her lunch that day, so she fed the remainder of it to this old cat. Well, he came back naturally the next day for more free food. So this went on for a couple of weeks, and finally they decided they'd adopt this old cat as our mascot of Natchez. The Southern Living magazine wrote an article about Tripod, and also there was a television show that was aired for a few years called PM Magazine. They were here in town filming some of the older homes and heard about this cat being our mascot, so they included him on the show. But when he died, and there at the base of his tombstone is an inscription that reads, "The City's Kitty." It's had several uses over the years. It dates back to its first use when it was built in 1852. That was the auditorium of the first public schoolhouse in Natchez. During the Civil War, the Confederate Army used it as a recruiting station. Now, it was renamed to Memorial Hall in 1924. The American Legion post was located, real nice hotel. And Mr. Levi, the original owner of it, named it Eola after his daughter. A lot of our friends over across the river there in Louisiana, they sort of pick with us. They say that the letters EOLA stand for East of Louisiana. We've had a lot of famous people stay here at the Eola Hotel. We've had such people in Natchez touring here as Eleanor Roosevelt and General Douglas MacArthur, and one of the ambassadors from South Africa. It was built in 1844. Now, that was a private home back then. In 1903, the Elks organization bought this home, and they turned it into their lodge. And they stayed there up until 1980. And they moved into a new building. Now, Tucker, the light hadn't changed yet, boy. They moved into a new building, and it was turned into the bed and breakfast that it is now. It's called the Guest House in Natchez. This is a men's club back in its day. They call it the Apprentice Club, named after a Sergeant Apprentice who was once the governor of the Mississippi Territory. Down in the basement of it, they've got a nice lounge there now, but back in those early days, yeah.
Where's Pinto and Riley's auction?
Riley and Pintard. All right, in the basement of it, back in those early days, for about 10 years, the Masons used it as their temple. Now, the home there on our left, local building contractor here in Natchez back in those early days, and 6 generations of that man's family lived in that home over the years. The old man had a very unusual name, I think. His name was John Smith. His business partner in the construction work lived here in this White House. It was built in 1810. Right next door to it, still on your left, is a little Victorian that dates back to 1890. The gray house there beside the Victorian was built in 1796. Y'all might remember back in 1960, Natchez was honored to have a Miss America named Linda Lee Meade. Up until about 8 years ago, the Meade family lived here in this little 1796 home. And over here on our right, you see the portion of the house that has a new roof on it there. That's where they've joined together the old kitchen building with the servants' quarter with the servants' quarter and kitchen building with the main house over the years. A lot of these older homes have done this. Myrtle Terrace was completed around 1844. In 1851, this became the home of Thomas Leathers. Now, Leathers was a riverboat captain. He was the captain of the Natchez steamboat when they had the race of the Natchez and the Robert E. Lee. Now, Leathers also owned a fleet of steamships. He had 11 steamships in all. 7 of them had the name Natchez. I believe you were telling me earlier that y'all took a boat tour out of New Orleans. Was it on the Natchez?
No, it was in Philly Fair, so it was another boat.
Well, I know the Natchez does a lot of tours right around locally around New Orleans. Of course, it's not one of the original Natchez boats.
We took the Pierre Lafitte.
Pierre Lafitte. Okay.
That wrought iron is beautiful.
It is. Now, most of the iron work here in Natchez was done by a foundry that was located here called Shaw's Foundry. And they located here in Natchez back in the 1870s. And we're here up until the not the mid, but up until about the 1920s or 30s. Up this way. Now, this is Stanton Hall here on our left. It took 5 years to build Stanton Hall. It was completed in 1857. Now, the owner of it back then was an Irishman named Frederick Stanton. He was a very wealthy plantation man. He had 13 plantations scattered across Louisiana and Mississippi and owned over 1,100 slaves. Now, they used Stanton Hall for a lot of the interior scenes of North and South when they were filming here in Natchez. Back in the early 1900s, Stanton Hall was turned into a girls' boarding school. And along about 1938, the Pilgrimage Garden Club acquired it, and they've owned it ever since then. And it is open for tour each day from 9 to 5. Around there behind Stanton Hall, they have a nice restaurant called the Carriage House Restaurant. And they're only open for the noon meal. They're open at 11:30, and they'll be closing down about 2 o'clock this afternoon. 1887. Now, this smaller Victorian here on our left on this corner is only 1/5 of a house. Now, that home was built in 1895. In 1948, one of the local builders here in town bought this old house. It was located about 6 blocks from here, and had his men just, tear it apart and rebuild into 5 sections and placed on 5 vacant lots that he owned. Of old Stanton's, where he had his horses. Right next to it, the 2-story home there was built in 1811. Now, Stanton stayed there while his mansion was being built. And then he turned it into a school for his overseer's children. Now, the last owners of that old house moved away from here in about the mid-70s, and it got in such bad repair that the city was going to have it destroyed. And back in 1839, this building was constructed as a little firehouse with the horse-drawn carriages. Of course, they've added the 3rd floor to it and put windows in, but, over the years, you've got to have things like this done to it. The old block and tackle there would have been used to hoist fire equipment and feed for the horses up into the loft area. And also, after a fire, they would hang the fire hose by a block and tackle and let it drain and dry out. Church. Now, they were organized in Natchez in 1805. And their first sanctuary was built in 1807. And this particular building replaced it in 1873. Now, the Methodists here in Natchez organized the first Sunday school south of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1829. My grandfather was pastor there at Jefferson Street in 1938 and 39. Oh, Tuck, you can't on Franklin Street. They're really pretty. And Mr. Coote joined him in the business in 1841. And that bank has survived the Civil War and the Depression. They have never failed to open their doors during regular banking hours. If you look up the street and to your left, you'll see the St. Mary's Catholic Cathedral. Now, that cathedral had its first Mass on Christmas Day of 1841. And some more of your New Orleans style ironwork along the side of the buildings there. Yeah, the Kuntz descendants of this Mr. Kuntz are now the Beltshoovers. Of course, after marrying, daughters marrying into different families, the name changed. They're now into their 8th generation living in the home that Mr. Kuntz bought when he moved to Natchez in 1841. In Natchez, you see the difference in the construction. The building itself was constructed in 1852. The new front was put on it in 1901. It was called the Natchez Institute. Classes were taught in that building for 105 years, up until 1957. And now the school board has their offices located there. Yeah, that's the back side of the Presbyterian church we were by earlier. And these row houses over here on our left. See, back in those early days, Natchez was a large trading port. And we had about 75 or 80 inns scattered around town and in town, because the traders would come downriver. They'd float downriver on their old flatboats and sell or trade their goods here in Natchez. And after they emptied their flatboats, they would disassemble the boat and sell the lumber either as construction wood or as firewood. Well, this was 80. That was a bakery in there from 1880 until 1923. The bakery closed down around 19th building on our left was built in 1895. Now this house was empty for about 6 years. That's why it looks in such bad repair. And just about 4 months ago, a family bought it. They bought it back about September, October, along in there. And we're hoping pretty soon they'll get around to working on the outside of it. They're doing a lot of work on the inside of it right now. Right next to the Victorian, there's the Jewish synagogue. Now that's the second synagogue they've had here in Natchez. The first one was destroyed by fire around the turn of the century, and this one was completed in 1905. And across the street, still on your left, is the oldest of the church buildings. It's the Trinity Episcopal Church. It was built and completed in 1822. And they've held services in that church since that year. As you come around the corner, you'll be looking at Glen Auburn standing over here on our left on the hill. Now, Glen Auburn is not antebellum. It was built after the Civil War in 1874. It's an Italian-style mansion. Its first owner was a Miss Christine Swartz. And Miss Christine operated a chain of general stores from Lorman, Mississippi down to Natchez. It looks like they're trying to do a little bit of repair work to it. That old house sat empty for about 4 years. I don't know whether anybody's planning on moving into it now or not, but it looks like they're doing some kind of repair work. Now here on our right is the back column mansions. And the portion of the building that extends back away from the columned portion is where the old kitchen and servants' quarter area was. Now this was the first of the mansions to have the kitchen attached to the main house. Now, they say that people came from miles around to look at a house that had a kitchen in it. Now it is, like I say, the newest of the antebellum mansions. It was built just before the Civil War began, back in 1858. Because I think the back of it's really prettier than the front. I'm going to get Tucker to stop down here in front of this little Victorian over here. But that home has got a really beautiful and unusual front porch to it. Get him to stop here for you. Ease down a little bit, Tucker. See how that wall curves, the window pane curves right around with it. Now that home was built in 1890. But the stained glass and cut glass around the doorway is really beautiful, and the way that window pane curves is most unusual to me. I've seen glass work in cabinet work, you know, have a little curvature to it, but never an outside window pane. It's really pretty. So the front porch on that house sort of makes me think that maybe an old retired riverboat to the side, but when we get across the street, the front porch is beautiful. Now, it was built in 1796. And the same date goes with the home right across the street to our left. It's called Holly Hedge. It was also built in 1796. There's one about 3 houses down to our left, was built in 93. And right next to Dixie is a home that was built in 1794. It was the home of the last governor of the Mississippi Territory. Now the oldest of the group is across. It's the local doctor that owns that building now. It's his private home. And he was so proud of it that he did have wooden shingles put back on it to get it back into the original condition. When he bought this old building back in the mid-60s, it was in bad shape. It had that old stucco covering over the brick, and it was about crumbled up, you know, it's just in bad condition. He had all that removed and had it finished off. And the Spanish governor is the one who started the idea of having staircases built on the outside of homes, and also for having bedrooms with no closets. They were both built in 1888. And they call them gingerbread houses when they're over here on our right is the old depot that we left from. It's a Mississippi Central depot. It was built around 1904. The smaller building was the passenger depot, and the larger building was a freight depot. Y'all remember during the filming of North and South, the burning scenes where they burned the Irish immigrant settlement and also the burning of the factory. All that was done here in between these two buildings. Now, that was before they did all this renovation work. They just did all this around 1985, 86. Here. Come on, dude. How y'all doing today? Along here where these...
Okay, this is the old depot and marketplace.
This is looking out, or at the bottom of the hill almost, and you can see where there is some boat material down there where they dock boats. And you can also see how wide the river is at this point.
Yeah, at the bottom of the hill, they call this Silver Street. Some old buildings, and we thought maybe we'd go in this, which is known as the Magnolia Grill, and grab a bite to eat. It says Mark Twain's guest house. Mary went in that saloon or whatever it is. And the Riverboat Gift House. Behind the saloon, as they call it. These are real, I suppose. Skylight coming in here. I'll get back a little, maybe I can get... Okay. Apparently. They're very small. They're coming out of the potty in there.
Yeah, come on in, it's real neat. Come on. I don't know if you'll be able to get it, but they have a vanity here where you can comb your hair, and then that wash basin is made out of marble, and then the flush tank is up there. If you
This is in the saloon itself. They say they try to keep this in its original form.
As you can probably see, there is quite a current in the Mississippi River here. And we're just going around a bend. And as we go around the bend, I'll get the entire bridge that crosses the Mississippi River. We're leaving the area that they did the gamblers and thieves hid their material here. This house is built up on the hill, and the hill is eroding, and these are just trees. Oh, I got the light on. This is just a pretty house. We are now leaving Natchez, Mississippi, and as we go along, I'm taking some pictures of the houses that are very distinguished and different looking. As we go along here, you will notice the houses are many different colors. In the south, they stick with pinks and yellows and blues and greens. And this is just a street in Natchez that is, as we're going out, I'm taking a picture of it. Bed and Breakfast Inn. You can see the beautiful grill works on the fence.
Okay.
First Presbyterian Church, the second oldest Presbyterian church in Old Southwest Oregon, April 1809. as Bayou Pierre Church. Moved to Port Gibson in 1827. Evelyn Butler first
Will I get it framed? Okay. No. Okay.
Port Gibson Historic Tours, First Presbyterian Church, 609 Church, 1859 to 60. Roman K Revival. This church with the hand pointing to heaven is the most famous building in Claiborne County. The original hand of gilded wood was carved by young David Foley. The hand is inside the church for renovation, and we are going to go inside the church and take a picture of it. This hand is outside because the first minister, when he was given a sermon, always held his hand up with his finger pointing to the sky. The church is being renovated, and the hand has been brought in. They hope that it will be ready by March of '90. This is a beautiful old church, and the choir loft and the pews. Apparently this was a large church for the size of the town that Port Gibson was when it was constructed. There's beautiful stained glass windows, and the candelabras that are hanging from the chandeliers are very nice also. We are up in the balcony of the church looking down, and you can see the communion table is made out of marble top, must be oak, very fancy altar work, and then the baptismal urn is over on the right hand side, just in front of the hand. That's it. On the top of them is a horseman that's riding, and along each one has different figures on each one of the pedestals of the chandeliers. Most unusual.
This is the courthouse in Port Gibson. We're going to go down to one of the battle sites. I guess that's what it is. These are trees alongside of the road. I guess that's moss on there or something. Really don't know what that is. We're following, this is they call it a Grand Golf battleground or something. This is a driving tour that we take out of Port Gibson, Mississippi. Okay, we're coming to Grand Golf Park. Yeah.
This be the park.
Yeah, this is not...
Cemetery gun, lookout tower, and view of the Mississippi River.
Okay.
Yeah. No cars either way.
Grand Golf Town
This
Cemetery.
is Old Town Cemetery, early 19th century, Mississippi River boatmen, travelers, and residents of Grand Gulf are buried here.
Get it to see the sun right behind it.
Yeah.
These are Confederate rifle pits during April 29, 1863. Bombardment from the Grand Gulf. These rifle pits were held by the 6th Missouri Confederate. Okay.
Confederate rifle pits during the April 29, 1863 bombardment of Grand Gulf. 3 rifle pits in the coverway which linked Fort Wade and Colburn were held by the 3rd Missouri Confederate. Okay, that's our second one.
Okay. This is a gun emplacement to guard against the Union attack in the rear of the Confederates. So through all their work, note the embracements on the 4 field guns in the ditch in front. I guess they've taken the guns up for the winter because I don't see any guns here. Going around the tour. Okay.
The town of Grand Gulf began in the 18th century as a small British settlement. By 1828, it had grown into a village of 3 stores, 1 tavern, and several houses. There was a stage line to Port Gibson and steamboats stopped at its wharves. Incorporated in 1833, Grand Gulf received its name from a large whirlpool formed in the Mississippi River struck a great rock formation. By the late 1830s, Grand Gulf had become an important port and trading center with 76 city blocks and about 1,000 people. In 1853, a tornado devastated a large portion of the town. Yellow fever and cholera epidemics resulted in further population losses. To make matters worse, the Mississippi River changed its course and began eating into the land on which the town was built. Between 1855 and 1860, 55 city blocks were destroyed by the river. By 1860, only 158 lived there. During the Civil War, federal troops and gunboats destroyed the remainder of the town. The town was never rebuilt after the war, and today, even as the river has deserted what was once a bustling river port, all that remains are a few antebellum buildings scattered along what was once the outskirts of the town.
Down there. Okay.
Naval battle during Grant's campaign. War returned in March 1863. Fearful that Major General Grant's army might bypass Vicksburg, Lieutenant General J.C. Pemberton ordered Brigadier General John Bowen to move his troops to Grand Gulf. During the next several weeks, Bowen's troops built fortifications and mounted big guns. Rebuffed in his efforts to capture Vicksburg, Grant marched southward to Louisiana from Milliken Bend. He planned to cross the Mississippi and take Grand Gulf, which would give the Federals a base for operation against Vicksburg to the south. To support the attack, Rear Admiral D.D. Porter ran several ironclads past the Vicksburg battery on the night of April 16th. On April 29th, the Federals were ready to strike. Porter's ironclads opened fire on Fort Colburn, and Wade Porter's squadrons consisted of the Pittsburgh, Louisville, Fond du Lac, Mont City, Tecumseh, Lafayette, and the flagship Benton. The bombardment lasted for 5 hours. The Tacumba was disabled and the guns of Fort Wade silenced. The big guns in Fort Colburn still roared defiance. Defeated in efforts to drive the Confederates back, Porter called off the attack. Under cover of darkness, the Federals bypassed Grand Gulf and crossed the Mississippi at Bryansburg the next morning. Confederate rifle pits shortly after the Union ironclads opened fire on April 29, 1863. The 12th Arkansas Sharpshooters Battalion moved up from the reserve and occupied these rifle pits.
Okay.
Point of Rock. In 1863, Point of Rock jutted far above the swirling waters of the Mississippi. Before the Civil War, there was a large house with extensive gardens on top of Point of Rock. Before Brigadier General John S. Bowen troops were ordered to Grand Gulf in March 1863. The dwellings have been burnt. One could see up and down the river for miles from the top of Point of Rock. Bowen chose this point for his observation station, from which he and his officers anxiously watched the powerful Union build-up at hard times.
Okay.
Site of Hot Shot Furnace. When General John S. Bowen's troops moved to Grand Gulf in March 1863, they had to cope with the ocean-going warships of Admiral David G. Farragut. Knowing that these ships were made of wood, the Confederates determined to use hot shot against them. 2 hot shot furnaces were constructed, one at Fort Colburn, the other at Fort Wade. The Confederates had only 2 guns capable of throwing heavy round shots, so General Bowen had his gunners fill the projectiles for their rifle guns with either clay or brick dust.
Right.
Whirlpool. Grand Gulf was named for the large whirlpool of Gulf formed by the current of the Mississippi River, being diverted to the left by the rocky headland called Point of Rock. At the time of the Civil War, the Big Black discharged into the Mississippi at the head of the Gulf. During the Battle of Grand Gulf, the 3 Union ironclads, which first attacked Fort Colburn, were buffeted by the powerful current. The Tecumseh was turned round and round. When the Benton's wheel was damaged by a Confederate shell, she spun around as she dropped down the river. After Fort Wade was silenced, the Louisville, Carondelet, and Mound City moved against Fort Colburn. These ironclads steamed in a circle blazing Fort Colburn at distance of from 500 to 600 yards. The river has now retreated and the Gulf is covered with trees.
Hey.
Fort Colburn. On a ledge 40 feet above the Mississippi, the Confederates in March 1863 laid out Fort Colburn. Protected by a parapet nearly 40 feet thick were 4 big guns manned by Company A, 1st Louisiana Heavy Artillery. The guns of Fort Colburn, under command of Captain John B. Grayson, fired their first hostile shots on March 31st at Admiral David G. Farragut squadron as it passed downriver. On April 29th, 7 of Admiral David D. Porter's gunboats attacked the Grand Gulf fortifications. For more than 5 hours, the Union ironclad and the guns of Fort Colburn dueled.
I believe that this is all there will have to be built a building for accommodation of maniacs. I notice men on the street every day that I am satisfied are more or less deranged. The constant tension of their nerves and about 12 later.
The citizen issue began today on Whirlpool.
It's your artifacts picked up from the battlefield.
Those are the cannons right here. We'll probably get a better view of them later. Cannon, and that's Wilson coming towards me. Tombstone commemorating Ohio. Another tombstone commemorating Ohio. Tombstone is Indiana. There's 3 of them that represent Indiana, and this is the little one. And I will bear over to this is the larger one here. All of them represent troops in Indiana. The entrance to Vicksburg Memorial Park. 2 of the cannons from the back from the Union Army.
Get this, we're going to take a tour of the actual battlegrounds. Okay.
Stephen
Bridge.
Ridge. Okay.
Okay.
And this one's
30.
Ohio, 33.
William Landrum. I can't read the rest of it.
Kentucky Infantry.
Oh. Okay. And I'll just pan this through here.
Okay, and this is an infantry. 77th Infantry.
Okay. And Indiana 16th Infantry, 1st Brigade, 10th Division. Can't read the rest of it. July 4th, 1863.
Stones are up there.
Where those blue signs are up there is infantry trenches.
Oh, that was Illinois.
Mm-hmm. And as you can see, there's several of them along. Now we're coming to a...
This one's Ohio.
Okay.
And I
Ohio.
guess you'll have to get out.
I got it. On Indiana 60th Infantry, 1st Brigade, 10th Division of the 18th Corps. June 1st to June 22nd, 1983. In 1st Ravine east of the marker. The area as we drive through here, we can't get all of this stuff. This is Illinois.
Oh, there's a cannon up there.
This is Illinois.
This is all
This is Illinois. And on both sides of the road here, this is a Union trench, where they were at least. And this thing, it looks like Washington's monument there. We'll have to wait till we get there, but I have to get it from back here. Jesse Alexander. Can't read it.
Indiana Infantry Commander.
Okay. 18th Infantry. I can read that one. I have no idea what this one is. It looks like a Washington monument.
I don't know, I can't read. Let's see who this is.
Apparently a commander.
Yeah, the 77th Division.
Numerous. Try to catch some as I can. It's
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Okay.
This is Ohio.
This is all
Commander.
Green Ron. Okay. And this one here is
Samuel A. Holmes, 10th Missouri
Infantry Commander.
2nd Brigade.
Where the trenches actually were. This
And
is Missouri.
Missouri. The Corps 7th Division, Lieutenant Artillery Battery. Can't read it. Lieutenant Thomas W. McMurray.
And Vincent somebody. Can't get it.
This is Illinois.
50th Infantry. This is Missouri's George B. Boomer.
Brigade, killed May 22nd, 1865.
17th Infantry of Iowa. This is the way they're laid out. I get past this tree. Yeah. Cannons on the hill. And again, we're looking down through. I have no idea who this is till we get there.
Isaac
Quinby. Isaac Quinby.
Okay.
Can't see the rest of it.
The paint over there shows how the land is. This is the most unusual. Another cannon up here.
He's facing away from us.
Yeah. See who this is?
Charles Matthews. 5th Ohio Iowa Infantry. It's a good thing it's a cloudy day.
Yeah, we never get these in the sunshine. Here's another Illinois.
I'm mostly just letting this run. I can't get all of this any other way. This is Holden Pittman, Colonel of the 93rd Illinois Infantry. And a monument of some kind I can get
This is Iowa.
Okay. And this is the 6th Battery. Okay. Let's see. I don't know what this is. Looks like a statue of a man on the other side.
All kinds of cannons around here.
Yeah, you can see these cannons peeking over the hill right here. Just barely peeking over.
Yost Battery, Captain Theodore Yost.
Ohio. 10th Infantry.
Iowa. Michigan.
Oh boy, look at it over here. Wait a minute, let me get this first. If I can pull it in. Michigan, Army of the Tennesseans. 9th Corps, 1st Division. This says 5th Infantry.
Iowa.
Wait a minute, I've lost it in the picture. Okay, 5th Infantry, Iowa, 3rd Brigade, 7th Division. The window. I can get a better picture that way. There's cannons all over.
This is Ohio, the 32nd Infantry, Colonel Benjamin F. Potts, 3rd Brigade, 3rd Division, 17th Corps. Okay?
I'm just shooting past your nose there because the window's open and get a better picture that way. Third Battery, Captain William S. Williams.
Ohio.
Some more cannons coming up ahead of us.
This is Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois.
17th Infantry, Major Frank F. Peets.
Oh, flashing battery, but I'll get past these cannons first. quit flashing. So
Okay, this is U.S. Battery, 2nd Illinois Light Artillery, 3rd Division, 17th Corps, Army of the Tennessee, Captain William H. Bolden.
They quit flashing, so.
Oh, okay. 8th Infantry, Lieutenant Colonel Franklin Campbell, and Colonel James J. Dolan.
Okay, camera kicked off, so that's telling me I need a battery.
Okay.
Union trenches there.
Okay, this is again Illinois. 8th Infantry, Colonel John P. Post, and Lieutenant Colonel Robert H. Strugis. 3rd Brigade, 3rd Division, 17th Corps. Okay.
Just panning out the windshield here. Looks like a very large monument on top of the hill. U.S. Missouri 17th Corps, 3rd Division, 3rd Brigade.
Brigadier General John D. Stevenson, 7th Infantry, Lieutenant Colonel William S. Alver, and multiple other soldiers.
Building on top, we'll see what it is when we get there. These are actually the trenches that they were in. You can tell these blue signs.
This is Ohio and Illinois. And Major General John A. Logan, Illinois. And this is Ohio. And here's another cannon over here.
Logan approaches begins.
And who is that? I can't read up there. John.
That's John Smith. John Smith.
Okay.
I don't know who it is, but John Smith. Whoever that
There's
is.
Illinois. What's this? Oh. Manning.
F Force Commander. I have no idea what this is.
I'm not going to walk up all those steps to go in.
Man. Somebody spent a lot of money on that one.
That's all marble.
Yeah.
And there's some cannons on the right there and on the left.
Cannons on the right of us and cannons on the left of us, huh?
Ohio.
This is just strewn with all kinds.
Guess we go around this way.
Oh. That's Mortimer D. Lickett, Colonel of the 78th Ohio Infantry. And this is cut, you see, is the old Jackson Road. No motor vehicles are allowed through there, so we have to turn around and go back.
Okay.
But I'll try to pan this area. There's a lot of cannons and
There's a
etc.
mine explosion.
Oh, yeah. Following Grant's order on May the 26th to reduce Vicksburg by the siege, the Union soldiers began construction and approached the trench of the 3rd Louisiana Raiders on the hill before you. On June the 5th, after tunneling beneath the fort, the Yankees exploded a charge of 2,200 pounds of powder under the rebels. The Union forces entered the resulting crater, but failed to break through the reinforced Confederate lines.
Through Looper.
Hickenlooper.
Okay.
And this was a road, but no motor vehicles are allowed through there.
Okay. We got all that on the tape.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is get some of those cannons and so on. As we backtrack, I'm going to pan this area. We got it coming up. But those ravines that you see down in there are designated as the Rifleman's Trenches. Now we're going to go out a different... This drive, I think this is 18 miles long, total, the way it winds through here.
And this is Illinois 31st Infantry.
Union Trenches,
Logan's Division.
Here. 20th Infantry of Illinois. Union Trenches.
I don't know what that is over there.
Yeah, well.
Won't worry about it.
Indiana.
1st Brigade, 3rd Division, 17th.
And this is I'll have to get this from here. I don't even know what it is, but I'll tell you what, they spent some money on monuments here.
Oh, that?
U.S. something, I can't read it. Cannot read it. They put it in bronze, and then you can't read it. This is Illinois 11th Infantry. Lieutenant Garrett somebody.
Oh, look at that.
I'm going to have to get this.
What's this? Curve.
Yeah.
This got an eagle on top.
I don't...
On the top of listening. I
Thank
don't
you.
know how good that will be.
Well,
but
it's whatever it is.
whatever it is, that's it.
We're recording all of our conversation.
Oh, well.
Can you imagine fighting on foot in the train like this? I can't imagine fighting anymore.
Captain Hamilton B. White.
Way up there on that hill is a cannon.
Oh, this is
Crocker.
Crocker. I can't read who from.
He is.
Iowa.
Iowa did. And some more generals. We had a lot of generals. Alexander Chambers, Colonel of the 16th Iowa Infantry. Colonel of the 11th Ohio Infantry. There. This one here must be having trouble.
This is Illinois. Must be moss or something that's hanging down. Really up.
I tell you, into the sun, I don't know if I got that noon or not, because the sun's laying right behind it. But whatever we got, we got. Here's something.
This is Illinois again. 90-meter blend.
Now, the camera kicked off. I don't know if I hit it or if it kicked off by itself. Okay, here's Illinois' 72nd Division, Frederick Stern, commander.
Some more stones on the hill.
Yeah, some stones up on this hill. I guess we'll work our way up there, up this road. Silas A. Smith,
Captain 8th.
Lieutenant Colonel.
U.S. Missouri
8th Infantry.
Infantry. Okay. No chase. Okay, some more cannons.
Looks like they fought this war with cannons. U.S. Battery H. First Illinois light down through here.
Okay.
This is Ohio.
Okay, and that's
Brigadier General U.S. something. Volunteers, I think.
commanding 3rd Brigade.
In front of us are actually supposed to be the riflemen's trenches where they stayed down in the trenches.
Okay, that's Ohio.
And you're supposed to walk through here, but we ain't walking. Right?
Right. See who this one is? This is...
This bronze one we might be able to read. The sun's on it.
Okay.
Cockerville.
Colonel 70th Ohio Infantry. Commander 3rd Brigade, 1st Division, 16 Corps. Okay. Frank Preston Blair, Major General U.S. Volunteers. Commander 2nd Division, 5th Army Corps.
Iowa 8th Infantry. I am
57th Infantry of Ohio.
And this one's Indiana. And the next one is,
Ohio.
yeah,
54th Infantry.
Illinois again.
27th Infantry.
Just a minute. This white is glaring up in the windshield.
Okay.
Okay.
This is Illinois 50.
Slightly polished one here, whatever it is. Ohio. Battlefield tour, anyway. And some more Ohios.
Yeah, let's see who this colonel is, if we can read it. No, can't. Oh, Washington.
Ohio there. This one must be in the Ohio territory here.
Yeah. 58th Infantry.
Wisconsin here.
Wisconsin's all done in the dark.
Yeah.
Let's see who that is. That's Milton somebody. I can't read it with the sun's glare.
Most of these are being taken through the windshield. I hope we don't get too much windshield glare, or where we can get them. Some 18 miles down around this.
Ellis S. Dennis. I don't know what, I can't read where he's from. Probably Illinois, because this is all Illinois. And this one is Isaac
Shepherd.
F. Shepherd, Missouri. 131st Infantry. This is Iowa Cyrus Buzzy, 3rd Cavalry. More Illinois. Oh. See who these three are if we can get them. Robert R. Potter, Brigadier General, U.S. Volunteers. William Soddy Smith. Now, see who this is. Whoops, get over on this side. I didn't expect someone coming up from that way. Cypress B. Comstock. Oh, U.S. Engineer, Chief Engineer, Army of the Tennessee. Colonel,
Assistant
Army of
Adjutant.
Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Or Illinois. Do not enter, it says.
Enter.
I guess it goes around and comes back. That's why he's... And there it is.
U.S. Army of the Tennessee, Major General Ulysses S. Grant. Okay, this must be the Army of Tennessee. Simon G. Griffith. I'm not walking up those things.
U.S. Headquarters, 16th Corps.
Oh, there's New Hampshire.
I'll be darned. I didn't even know New Hampshire was in on it. Oh, well. We'll have to go around the other side of this to see who it is, unless, oh, that's this little plaque right at the bottom tells us. That looks like Grant up there, though. Headquarters
U.S.
Army of Tennessee, Ulysses S. Grant. That's probably who's up. Move down some. Just a little bit
Wait
more.
a minute. Campaign.